It's a hard act to follow. Hey, so I told Ron, we live in the same building, so we're carpooling in this morning. I said, hey, I'm introducing you this morning. I don't have your bio, but I probably don't need one. I don't need this much. But I'll give one anyways. I've known Ron since 2002. We were posted together one service battalion, one of the Army units here, and we did our workout training together, and we went, I think one of his tours, my second tour to Bosnia. Anyways, we did 6 months together in Bosnia. So, the bulk of the time I've known Ron was with his time in uniform. We were friends in Edmonton. We were posted the same year, actually, 2006 to Ottawa. When I went to a hell job at 101, Colonel Y, and Ron was the crew manager that helped get me out of there a year later to an even busier job on the and then posted me a year after that to Ron's gonna, now I know Ron from his time in uniform. He left, when I went to Chilliwack shortly after that, he took a job with public service, first with Public Works and then with Darcy. And then we kept in touch over the years. Most recently, when I left the military, I became a civilian employee, and Ron was actually working for a contractor for the airport. So from our glorified heights of both being in the Army, I joined the dark side as a civilian employee, and he became a contractor for the airport. And now he's living here in St. Albert, and he's going to talk to us. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ron Burch.
Craig forgot to say that when I got him out of that hell job, I was able to buy a new car just with the extra funds that showed up one day. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my TED Talk. I promise I'm going to make this fast and furious. Hold on.
Oh, wait.
Now I got 2 slide lunches.
There it is.
I'm going to get my ass kicked for that comment. Thank you.
I hope so.
Did he get away with it?
He's going to make a comment about needing a man to go over there and fix her phone.
Oh,
I don't know, you didn't use him last week, so I don't know. It might be a challenge. Thanks.
This is just standard operating procedures.
What's that?
I'll tell you later.
Okay. Okay. Right, so Ian asked me to do a career chat, and I said yes. But then immediately I had to figure out which career. So this is just going to be just a tiny flavor of one aspect of one of my careers, because I've had basically 4 of them. So I was a stockbroker, an Army officer, an executive in the Federal Public Service, and a business consultant for national defense. And my senior positions were very administrative, very bureaucratic, and quite frankly, there's a lot of boring stuff in those careers. So I decided to talk about an earlier career experience, which it still to this day means a lot to me, but I believe it ties in with Rotary's own values. So it's a quick look, scratching the surface of where I felt at one time I made a difference in terms of peace, and that was my deployment to Kosovo. So we often talk about how we need to bridge the gap between war and peace, and oftentimes we treat it like it's a linear function. But the truth of the matter is that conflict is a continuum, and it ebbs and flows from one state to the other. And there's so many pieces of the puzzle that have to be in place to be able to move from war to peace. And oftentimes it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Although not official policy until 2005, during the Kosovo conflict, the Canadian government used a 3D framework of defense, diplomacy, and development as their roadmap to achieving peace. Today it's called whole of government effort. And as a military officer, I was involved with the first pillar. Diplomats and politicians were involved in the second pillar, and non-government organizations, NGOs, like Rotary International, were involved heavily in the third pillar. Those 3 pillars are all interdependent upon one another, and every single one of them is critical to achieving this sustainable peace. So, KFOR, Kosovo Force, a NATO operation. So the Kosovo conflict is widely seen as a follow-up to the Bosnian War of the early 90s, arising primarily from the oppression of the ethnic Albanian majority by the Serb paramilitary minority. And keep in mind, at the very beginning, Kosovo was not, in the Canadian context, classical peacekeeping. We weren't monitoring a demilitarized zone as a result of a truce, such as in the Golan Heights or in Cyprus. And in fact, Serbia had rejected foreign troops coming into Kosovo, which necessitated active combat through primarily a bombing campaign before transitioning to peacekeeping. So I arrived in Skopje, Macedonia on the Easter Sunday, 1999, for what was to be a 4-day reconnaissance mission to plan the camps for 1,400 Canadian military personnel. At the end of the 4 days, the Canadian commander pointed, unfortunately at me, and said he's leaving me behind as a liaison officer to the British 4th Armored Brigade headquarters. So I moved to go live with the Brits in a muddy field on the edge of Skopje, Macedonia. And my liaison position changed the minute I arrived in the brigade. I was immediately tasked to be a logistics planner for the 7,000 person brigade. I was also part of an events team, which in the military parlance we call Step Up. And it's how we move large numbers of troops in the field. So you gotta think of leapfrogging. We had a 300-person headquarters, and 30 of us in 8 vehicles would dash forward when it was time to cross the border, set up a security perimeter, put up a radio mast, start passing messages back and forth and controlling the movement of the 7,000 guys behind us. That would give the 270 left in the headquarters to collapse their radio masts and their tents, get in their vehicles and leapfrog. It's just a leapfrogging maneuver. 28 days after I arrived in Macedonia, though, we crossed the border. And I was the very first Canadian to cross the Kosovo border. It took 10 hours to go 85 kilometers. And that's mainly because there's a 2-lane highway with 50,000 NATO troops. And we're going through the Kachanik defile, and it had 2 major bridges, 2 major tunnels that we had to clear of explosives just so we could get everyone through there. Once you cross the border, chaos reigns, because everybody kind of bomb bursts out. You know, the Germans going to the German sector, the French going to the French sector, the Americans going everywhere. Anyway, our main goal was to set up a little mini headquarters, our little step-up operation in Lipion, which was about 16 kilometers south of Pristina. And we thought we were going into an industrial park. Turns out, we actually went into a garbage dump. The minute we arrived, we found ourselves in the middle of a firefight between the 2 sides. So we had to deal with that firefight first to make our own little area secure. The initial plan was we'd stay there for 24 hours, and we ended up staying there 11 days. So 11 days living in a garbage dump, in plus 40-degree weather, limited water, limited food, no showers, no toilets. This is the stuff they don't put on recruiting posters. This is typical of what we saw as we crossed the border. I can tell you, all banter inside of our vehicle ended the minute the gravity of the situation sunk in. After leaving the garbage dump finally, we made it back to what's become our home in Pristina. Now, most of the Brits live behind a secure perimeter, such as this. We lived a little farther away. Our section lived a little farther away in what John would call a handyman's delight. In the middle photo, I'm actually staring at a 3-ton truck up on its nose. And I slept next to that truck for months. And, as seems to be my career path, once in Pristina, my job changed. So I was assigned new duties as the brigade's senior logistics staff officer, now in charge of the planners and also the logistics operations. Because the British officer who had been doing that role kind of get medevaced out. It was tiring work. We were ordered to be at our desks in our tent, on our bench, in our tent from 7:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, regardless of workload. Now, as logisticians, we normally concern ourselves with basically, do the troops have enough food, water, ammunition, and fuel? But on peacekeeping, you're also the catch-all for all the other strange things. So we also took an inordinate amount of time to worry about porta potties, showers, toilet paper, 1 meter per person per day in the British Army, no more. That's your allocation, so you better make it last. Most of us have our own supplies. I was also tasked because of my explosives background as one of 2 explosive ordnance disposal EOD operators for the headquarters. And these changes in job and extra tasks, it's not uncommon on operations. It's kind of like doing home renovations. You never know what you're going to get till you open up the wall. Police are the same way. They never know what they're going to walk into. As EOD operators, Alex, my British counterpart, and I, we were on call 24/7. And our job was to render safe, which in the lay perspective, I guess you could say, disarm munitions or devices that had not exploded. Excuse me. So EOD is divided into conventional military munitions and then improvised explosive devices. And please don't think what you see in the movies, like The Hurt Locker or Die Hard, is representative of the truth. I can vouch there is no such thing as a countdown timer on any bomb device. There's 2 seconds left, got the red wire. You're not allowed to comment on movies that move anymore. We handle IEDs which deliberately target individuals. These call-outs occurred mainly at nighttime in residential high-rises. And were particularly challenging because every single device was different. And that meant every single device had a bespoke, on-the-spot, render-safe procedure that we had to craft. So it was mentally taxing and quite stressful at times. But really, conventional munitions were the main threat. And after the bombing campaign, these munitions were everywhere, including in the middle of populated areas. The locals knew where they were and would avoid them. And we could see it. There'd be in a village quad, a patch of uncut grass, because something would be in situ there. Or you would see it in a field where you'd have a straight line going across a field with all of a sudden a jog around and the straight line continues. Something was in situ. Now these munitions were very dangerous. And they're fully armed and they're extremely sensitive. In fact, in certain devices, in certain munitions, casting your shadow on it can cause it to detonate simply because of rapid temperature change caused by your shadow. So local authorities always tried to keep residents safe by collecting these munitions, but they didn't have the training, they didn't have the knowledge. And this lack of training would lead to a lot of hazardous situations, such as storing the devices inside school classrooms. The luck ran out on our tour when an attempt to clear one such cache led to an explosion that killed a British soldier and 3 local workers. After a couple months though, K4 established a firm presence. And that's when the real work began. We faced immense challenges, particularly in restoring the power grid. Many plants had been abandoned or bombed. Some specifically targeted with conductive graphite dust that short-circuited the machinery and proved notoriously difficult to clean up. And even when we repaired the hardware, we hit another wall because the plants were planned to be primed with mazat. Mazat is the crudest of crude oils from the Soviet Union. And our Western diesel is actually too rich and too refined to work in their system. We made a technical fix, but it took a lot longer than we anticipated. And this is where we learned a critical lesson, that our relationship with the locals was entirely contingent upon results. When the lights didn't come on as quickly as the locals anticipated, the same people who were chanting not to, as we crossed the border, started throwing bricks at our vehicles. We also had to revive some basic city services. Excuse me. A major focus was the reconstitution of the Pristina Fire Service. And much to my chagrin, and despite my loud, often protests, I was ordered to become a fire chief. 2 immediate obstacles really hit me. One was, you have to build a cohesive mixed crew of Serbians and Albanians. This is not an easy task because at the start, they wouldn't even look at each other across a lunch table, let alone work alongside each other. And two, we had no firefighting equipment. All the modern trucks and gear had been pulled back to Belgrade pre-NATO bombing campaign. And we were left with 1950s era Soviet trucks that didn't run. We had to comb through abandoned warehouses, factories, parking lots to scavenge batteries and parts just to try to get them running. But it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of work. We made progress. Critically, we instituted a system of mixed Serbian Albanian crews with mentors from civilian firefighters who flew over from the United Kingdom. This is just the start of building a lasting positive impact by creating trust within the fire service. Beyond our other efforts, we helped the UN jumpstart the process of getting people back into their homes by providing them with temporary identification. And many of the people displaced by conflict were struggling to prove who they were or where they lived because their documentation was either lost or confiscated. You try to go anywhere now without a driver's license or a passport in Canada and write a check. Not going to happen. It's even worse in a war zone. But an opportunity arose when the UN staff found boxes of passport applications complete with photos in the basement of the abandoned Pristina City Hall. And we used those as a means of dealing with squatters in houses when people were being repatriated. So I was sent in with a security team and a work crew to assist a French Army colonel who was working with the United Nations with the recovery. And we worked quickly to put together a plan to gather these files, put them in a secure location, and start the processing of them. And by retrieving these documents, we actually provided a boost to the United Nations mission in Kosovo, directly supporting stabilization and repatriation efforts. We also encountered weird challenges that we never anticipated. While professional organizations like the Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders are effective partners, less structured groups were a burden. One organization that annoyed us a lot was a church group called American Parents for Albanian Kids, APAC. APAC traveled to Kosovo on foot, handing out teddy bears, hugs, and Christian Bibles to children, even in the Islamic areas. They were blind to danger, and they couldn't recognize when they were on welfare. Sometimes we had to escort them out of volatile situations of their own creation, and this took us away from our own plans and operations. It was not something that we had scheduled into our workflow. Another organization showed up at our headquarters one day stating they had 35,000 liters of kidney dialysis fluid stuck at the Kosovo-Macedonian border. They had no customs clearance or permission to enter Kosovo, and they asked if we would take one of our 35,000 liter diesel trucks, empty it out, cross-load the dialysis fluid,
Oh my God.
and transport that fluid to local hospitals. We politely suggested that perhaps sex and travel was in their future. Now, in today's times, peace feels increasingly elusive, and achieving it is demanding work, especially when even our closest allies can disrupt the global order. But true peace requires a foundation of trust. It's a trust between people, it's a trust in the institutions you're trying to build. And this is why I feel the work Rotary does to address the root causes of conflict is so vital. And by addressing these root causes, we turn our time and resources into real, lasting, positive change. So when I look back at Kosovo, and that was just a very quick scratching the surface, I apologize for that, but when I look back at my time in Kosovo, I feel a tremendous sense of satisfaction because it remains probably one of the few career highlights where I personally got to contribute directly to the peace process. I'm also very proud to be a Rotarian. I'm very proud to stand alongside all of you in this club as we continue this work. Madam President.
Before you go, Ron, is there any questions for Ron?
Yeah.
Were you with Public Works Canada when you went to the light side from the dark side? That's a you.
No, so I ended my career and I went to Public Works for 6 months as a specialist purchasing ammunition for Afghanistan, and then I became an executive in corporate management for the RCMP. At one point in time, I owned all property procurement, finance, and business systems from the Manitoba-Ontario border to Newfoundland. And then I came out to Winnipeg as a director doing that, then I became a director general doing it for the Prairies and Arctic. So, yeah, John.
Do you ever look back to the areas that you were in with the modern technologies of like Google Maps and all that stuff to see how much it has changed?
Well, and the Balkans are fascinating too because metal evaporates in that there were bombed out train cars, and we would see it just on our tour. These train cars would slowly get dismantled. They were going after the metal, they were going after the wood on the floor, they were going after every little bit, and you would be driving 43 times past the same spot, and that bombed out train kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, Bosnia is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It could be a phenomenal ecotourism area if it wasn't for the landmines. and a good example, I'll deal with Bosnia instead of Kosovo in this case. Our sector in Bosnia was about as big as PEI. In that little area, 400,000 landmines had been laid, and some of those minefields have been sowed over 3 or 4 times. And after 10 years of intense demining efforts, Canada managed to clear 35,000. So we look back, the cities rebuilt, absolutely. One of the fascinating things I listened to people talk from when they first went to Bosnia to Craig and I went, said, wow, buildings have glass. You know, that was the big thing, is look at all the windows. So I have. And I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you actually get it to the point where you're gonna worry about that stuff anymore. But they're still doing it in Europe about World War II bombs, right, that they find in housing developments. So.
Ron, just a comment. I just wanted to thank you for your insights. I think, I sit here in Canada and worry about my neck cranking on a pillow and look at what you guys go through as soldiers, and I just appreciate the insight. It's something that I don't think the regular Canadian knows what exactly how strong our military is and how strong you guys have to be as human beings just to see what you see and do what you do.
Well, thank you very much. Agreed. I would go back and do it all over again in a heartbeat, knowing that we have people like you behind us.
Nice.
You know this, but I'm going to process this because we had a big debate at the first board meeting. But we are going to start live streaming the speakers. So this is Facebook Live right now?
It is.
And then we're going to put it up to the YouTube channel. So if a year from now you want to show somebody Ron's talk, you can find it on YouTube, which I think will be a nice addition to our historical database. Anyway, at our board meeting, we had a debate about the moose and whether we should be handing it out to speakers, and I was of the opinion that no. Every moose that we sell is worth $15-ish, something like that for our club, and we have a lot of them. But there's Carolyn Ferguson that said it's a very good visual that every time we hand a moose over to our guest speaker, it's a reminder that you, by speaking today, help vaccinate 5 children. So the money that we would get for our club, that we would send out to polio, is now, this is a symbol of what we are doing as a club, as an organization of Rotary in our fight to end polio. So as you all know, we make a big donation to polio on behalf of the club, on behalf of the speakers every year, and this is going to be now the visual symbol of that 5 or 6 children that can help save. And then, well, of course, as we donate, go through the Miss Vicky's Foundation, which then goes to the Gates Foundation. So we are tripling our impact every time we do this. So Ron, very well.
Thank you.
All right. Is Susan anywhere in the house? Yeah? All right. Come on, Susan. So one of our biggest fundraisers, and some of you signed up to help, is the garage sale. So I don't know how many years ago you guys were approached with the donations of all the 3 years ago now, 4 years Yeah, so a group of retailers in our community, whenever something is returned to them, they do not send it back to the manufacturer, they give it to poor Susan. Susan had to figure out what to do with it, and obviously the partnership we have with Rotary was the simple answer. And so we were all there, most of us were helping out on Saturday, thank you very much, because that was a great sale. 60% of all those sales, we donate back to the food bank, and 40% come to our club. So I think this is, I'm not sure when the last check you got is, she's so curious. I asked her, have any idea how much this check is, when she said 8,000. We are going to be giving this St. Albert Community Village and Food Bank today $10,145.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that this money is earmarked for our Tools for School for the kids. So we're doing 350 backpacks.
Nice.
New school supplies for the kids.
Oh, good.
And it's bloody expensive, those backpacks. So this will really go a long way. So thank you so much for this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.